New World Order does not mean surrendering our national sovereignty or forfeiting our interests. He took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial. How can I convince you when your ears refuse to hear? You turn your heart away from me each time when I draw near. Your eyes refuse to meet with mine, they glance away in fear. Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show? My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something. We both took the same oath. To defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. He is the free American, Clay Douglas. That's the Free American, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern. Every time I think about it, down, it's just been done. The anger wells inside me till I'm almost overdone. I want to down the moon, down the sky, and drop the sun. For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8631.
All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American. I'm your host. I am Clay Douglas, and I've got my friend Trevor Labonte that's joining me as my co-host today. He's a musician from up in Austin that I've had on several times, and I'm proud to welcome you. How are you doing, Trevor?
I'm good. I'm very happy to be with you today, Clay.
Well, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate it. I have I've got to apologize. I didn't get enough notice out on a lot of these things here. And our guest is Keith Davies. Hello, Keith. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you.
Now, what I have talked about here is the fact that in the information here, we had an airliner shot down, a Dutch airliner, I guess, from Holland, up in the Ukraine. And yesterday I just had Gordon Duff from Veterans Today. He's in the intelligence field. He's talking about what's going on in Malaysia, and I'm looking forward to getting your take on this. You're with the Shoebat Foundation, and I believe one of the things that you're doing here is trying to rescue Christians. So
that's right. We're specialists in the Middle East and politics and issues of the Middle East, and also specialists we have a sister organization that helps rescue Christians all over the world, specializing currently in Pakistan, but we have done work in Syria and Iraq and Yemen and Somalia. But you made a mistake there. I think the airline was a Malaysian airline.
Malaysia
had 195 Dutch people on board. I think you would
Yeah, a Malaysian airliner. We had one Malaysian airliner disappear. We had, now this one has been shot down, and it seems that they've been trying to put the blame on Russia for this, and some people are even pointing the finger at the United States for having a hand in this. I guess the Ukraine they were trying to envelop that into the whole European Union, and maybe you could tell me what the difference between the European Union and the Soviet Union is. I'm not sure I know, but when this part of the Ukraine voted to join Russia as opposed to the UN-run or the European Union-run Ukraine. What's happening over there? Can you give us some insight into that?
From my knowledge of international politics and what's going on in the world, is you have in the Ukraine, you have two ethnic groups. You have the Russians and you have the Ukrainians. When Ukraine became part of the Soviet Union back in 1917, what happened then was a lot of Russians moved to the Ukraine and only spoke the Russian language. So you have two ethnic groups that are rubbing against each other, and obviously the Russian influence there. They want to have influence coming from or being ruled or being a client state of the old Soviet Union, which is Russia today. Right, and then you have the Ukrainians who would prefer to be more clients of the European Union, right, and and be part of NATO and basically be the opposite of Russia, which could, Russia looks at the European, I would say, as an enemy today, but certainly as rivals, right, and basically. That's the reason for the major problems you're seeing in Ukraine.
All right,
today.
Now, history, and I study history. 11 million Ukrainians were starved to death under Stalin, Uncle Joe Stalin, as Roosevelt referred to him. So the Soviet Union certainly weren't the good guys there, and the Soviet Union at that same time period murdered and killed 60 million white Christian Russians. So what has happened in this current day is almost the Russians seem to have kicked the oligarchs out, kicked the communists out, and I thought the Ukraine had pretty much done the same thing there.
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. I mean, yes, Putin is old KGB, but what Americans don't seem to hear over here is that Putin is one of the few leaders in the world that's actually trying to protect the Christians of the Middle East, while we in America are actually doing the opposite. We're actually ignoring the problem of Christian persecution, right, in the Middle East, and our president is actually allowing it to take place, doesn't condemn it, or if it does condemn it, from the State Department and it's a terrible thing, but we're not going to do anything about it, right? So people like to condemn Putin as this KGB fascist type guy, but also his policies in terms of the gay agenda. We in America are all out for the gays, as a society, or the administration, right? And we are allowing the homosexual agenda to take root, the homosexual agenda is not just about the act of sex; it's also about destroying Christianity, right? So we're allowing our country to be secularized, to remove religion from our country, and the leftists are trying to do this. Well, Putin is the opposite. He is a Christian, right, and he supports the outlawing of the homosexual agenda, and he's trying to protect Christians in the Middle East. So it's a little bit more complicated than, oh, the Russians are bad and Putin is bad and we are good. You know, so there's a lot of, but unfortunately we are subjected to a lot of propaganda on the mainstream media. And
really,
we don't look at the whole picture.
I'd say that's putting it mildly. You know, I gotta tell you, Keith, I've been demonized a lot by these communist propagandists like the ADL and Southern Poverty Law for starting the militia in New Mexico. Wasn't any kind of terrorist operation. What part of the Second Amendment don't they understand? I started the militias in New Mexico in the governor's office, and I did it in response to the murder of 17 little children and their families at a Christian church that had been established for 50 years in Waco, Texas, actually Elk, Texas. So, I mean, and then 1 year later, in Oklahoma City, the BATF, the same people that attacked the government forces that attacked the Christians in Waco, they killed 22 more children in Oklahoma City. So,
well, I mean, the homosexual agenda and the left-wing agenda is to promote abortion and the killing of millions of babies. Right, I mean that's their agenda. You know, pro-choice means is just a cheap word for pro-murder.
I've said that quite possibly, if we count abortions, and we have to take that in consideration, they have murdered more people in America than they did in the Soviet Union when the Bolsheviks took over.
That's true.
I mean, we've had at least 60 million of our children killed, murdered by these abortionists, by these, and we certainly got a few homosexual perverts that rise all the way to the level of the presidency, don't we?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but it's been suggested that the president may be gay. I haven't seen that it hasn't been proved, but I haven't seen it be proven either.
I was actually referring to George Bush because I've got friends that whose daughter he molested, Kathy O'Brien, and her rescuer Mark Phillips. She wrote the book Transformation of America, and she talked about George Bush molesting her daughter Kelly for years. But
also, I was just at Freedom Palooza and I was hanging out with Larry Sinclair, and that guy's for real. But Obama smoked crack while Larry Sinclair blew him, and it's there's no question that Obama is a homosexual. He's had like 4 or 5 of his brothers bumped off, and he's never had a history of being with women. And I saw and talked to Larry Sinclair on and off for like 3 days. We were all camping up in Pennsylvania, and so there's no question about that.
all right, Keith, let me. Your organization is trying to protect Christians. What about what's happening in Gaza right now? Now, the 3 teenagers, and we'll get back here just in a moment to the Malaysian airliner. I want to talk about that more. But what's happening in Gaza right now, we've got apartment buildings being targeted, bombed. We've got hundreds of women and children that are being slaughtered here, and the 3 teenagers that supposedly was used as an excuse to start this by Israel. There is a recording of the 3 teenagers calling somebody and talking to them, and their kidnappers were speaking Hebrew perfectly. They weren't there wasn't Arabs that kidnapped these, And Christians in the Gaza right now, this attack on the Gaza, I had somebody say, well, the Hamas is hiding behind the children. Well, wait a minute. It is their children. It's the children of Hamas. Hamas is the duly elected government, I guess, of whatever's left of Palestine. And, of course, they've got their children with them. They're not hiding behind them. They're raising their children, trying to raise their children, and they're being bombed out of existence. What's going on there? What's you've got an insight.
Are you familiar with the charter of Hamas? Are you familiar with what Hamas charter is?
I am not completely familiar with that. No, sir.
Yeah, you're not. Okay. Well, the charter states that they want to destroy all the Jews. They want to kill the Jews. That's their charter. It's not about land. It's not about Palestine.
No, they don't want to accept a Jewish state in Palestine. Don't try to spread a bunch of propaganda about Hamas.
Okay, well, I'm finished with this.
All the Israelis are doing, you sound like an Israeli propagandist. All the Israelis are doing is attacking the civilians in Palestine, and they've labeled them all as militants, and so they can just kill like your mother, your grandmother, and whatever house they hit. You know, if children die, well, they are human shields, and every single thing that the Israelis say is a complete lie, and there should not be a Jewish state being forced into Palestine. They need to get out, and anybody that tries to spread propaganda against Hamas is an enemy of the Palestinian people.
Well, let's see. We just lost our guest there. I guess truth hurts, doesn't it, Trevor?
Yeah, I can't stand people that try to talk about how Hamas are bad people or whatever. That is total nonsense. They have a very corrupt, political wing. A lot of the Palestinians don't like Mahmoud Abbas, but when it comes to the military wing of Hamas, they are the defenders of the Palestinian people, and if you don't support Hamas, then you're an enemy of the Palestinian people at the moment, who are being genocided right now. They're being wiped out, and it hasn't stopped for 67 years. And anybody that immediately starts talking about Hamas and their charter literally sounds exactly like an Israeli propaganda.
Well, that's exactly what they are. This whole Walid Shoebat Ministries is about Walid. He was a Palestinian terrorist. Well, why is he alive, and why is he got a foundation that is raising money to protect Christians? Oh my God! Now you just exposed. And here's this Keith Davies here. I've got a little video up on here. He's the founder and executive director of Rescue Christians. I mean, he is working hand in hand with Walid Shoebat. And
yeah, he's an anti-Islam propagandist to the max. Walid Shoebat is one of the most hated figures in the truth movement, because what we're trying to do, obviously, the Zionists are trying to spread lies about Islam, and that's what they're doing through Walid Shoebat Ministries. I really don't know that much about it, other than that they spread lies about Islam and the idea that, you know, he's hated by the peace. Walid Shoebat is like a traitor to the Palestinian people, because he propagandizes against his own people. So to him, to me, he's actually worse than an Israeli, because he's like a traitor to the Palestinians and one of the worst propagandists. He's like up there with what's her name?
Well, that's exactly.
Those people. Dude, I'm friends with like 2,000 Muslims, and they're the nicest, most humble, honest, good people that you'd ever want to meet, and I just don't believe any of the nonsense that people try to spread about Islam. And if we're going to try to beat this New World Order, then what has to happen is the Christians and the Muslims and even the atheists, the non-militant atheists, need to form an alliance, build bridges to one another, and help inform the public, Christians included, that they're being lied to about Islam, and to read the Quran for themselves. And like all religions, I guess, have their blemishes, but right now the people that control all the banks of the world, it's not the Muslims, that's the so they're all Jewish people, and we have to work hard to counteract all of their propaganda about everything. And I also noticed that when Keith Davies was describing the conflict in the Ukraine, that he didn't mention that the Ukrainian leadership is actually a CIA-sponsored coup, and it's on behalf of the International Monetary Fund and World Bank, and they're getting a lot of Jewish oligarch dictators into power in Ukraine, and it's got absolutely nothing to do with Russians versus Ukrainians. You've got a hostile takeover of the Ukrainian government, and the banks were intending to get control of the naval base at Sevastopol in Crimea, and they failed because even though they had their coup in Kiev, Putin, who's a genius, stepped in and had the people of Crimea have a referendum, and they voted almost unanimously to rejoin Russia. So what that means for Russia is that they get to retain their warm water base, their only warm water base in the Baltic, because if Putin didn't control Crimea, then the Israelis could just waltz right up to the border of Russia there and lob nuclear missiles from their submarines right into Russia. So when Putin had his referendum and got control of Crimea, that was the greatest defeat ever dealt into the New World Order in its history, and that's the reason why we have this false flag, trying to blame on Putin this plane being shot down, which looks like it was shot down by a Ukrainian fighter, but the day after it was downed, all of the news, all of the Western media was trying to blame it on Putin, and there's these articles, Putin's missiles and doing everything in their power to blame it on Putin, and the reason is that he just completely handed the New World Order its ass. Once again, he's doing it over and over. The Russian military had a press conference, and they just completely made fools of the West and debunked all of their propaganda and exposed the entire Western media, which is all controlled by 6 Jewish companies. It was all lying in concert, trying to blame Putin. And he just once again made a complete fool of the West, just like he did when he exposed the false flag gassing in Ghouta, Syria. It was being blamed on Assad, but was actually being done by his rebels. So the New World Order can't handle this multipolar system that Putin has created. And also the other reason that they hate him is that he just a week ago, they started up the new BRICS bank, which will circumvent the Zionist banks, the European banks. So Putin is quite an enemy of the New World Order, just based on those and other things that are going on. And anyway, it's not the Muslims. It's
the Jews, always has been, and I would give you odds that Keith Davies is Jewish, and he is the cover there for Walid Shoebat. I mean, if they're killing teenagers in Palestine, they're killing teenage Palestinians so they don't grow up to be terrorists. Why would they let somebody like Shoebat live?
Yeah, I know, and the idea that Palestinians can even be terrorists, to me, is a strange idea, because under international law, Palestine is given the right to defend itself against occupation, and conversely, Israel's occupation of Palestine is in contravention of international law. So all talk of Israel defending itself and Palestinian terrorism is utterly nonsensical, because under international law, the only thing Israel has the right to do is get the hell out of Palestine. So I don't want to hear about the Palestinians and what they do, to defend their country. A lot of it is just propaganda anyway, and I'm sure that Walid Shoebat is a liar, and that he's been put in this position by Israelis to spread propaganda against Islam, and that's just part of the Jewish society. You mention Islam to a Jew, and they'll practically spit on the ground, and they have just such hatred for this religion. And then you start, reading in the Quran, and you're like, oh my God, everything they're saying about Islam, everything the Jews are saying about Islam is a complete lie. And
so, I love this. They're talking about Shoebat.com is touted the claim by Hamas it does not use human shields. I mean, this the whole idea. Here you're bombing apartment buildings, and when there's children in the apartment buildings, they're using them as human shields. They live there, you idiots. I am so glad I got you on here. I'm not usually rude to my guests here, and I certainly don't want to upset special guests. They book a lot of good people on my show for me. But I told them I wouldn't have Walid Shoebat on. I thought I'd allow Keith to come on. But he did exactly what the Jews do. As soon as you brought up the negative side of this whole Jewish organization, this whole Jewish mindset, he hung up. He couldn't face this. And I suspected that would happen.
The Palestinian people. He's an enemy of the Palestinian people, because when he started off right into this Israeli talking point. So have you read the Hamas charter? Well, Hamas said, well, shut up, shut your mouth, dude. They're killing innocent people right now. The death toll is over 700 people, and like I said, they've labeled all Palestinians as militant. So if they kill your grandmother, oops, she was a militant. If they kill your sister, she is Hamas. If your little 1-month-old nephew dies, well, they were using them as a human shield. No, they're bombing their apartment buildings and houses, where they live, and then they're calling them militants. And anyone that says otherwise is nothing but a filthy, rotten, evil propagandist for Zionism. And these people are the enemy, and they'll always fail our litmus test. You start speaking the truth in front of one of these people, and they will turn and run as fast as they can, just like a vampire that you splashed holy water on its face. They're just the lowest, most rotten people that there are, propagandizing against the innocent Palestinian population that's being bombarded with F-16s. And they're going to come on here and talk about Hamas charter. It doesn't. The goal is not to kill the Jewish people. I still have not met one person in the whole movement that's their whole goal is to like wipe out the Jews. The Palestinians don't want to wipe them out. They want them to leave. They want them to get out of their country, and they actually have every right under international law to do that. International law does not support occupation, and Israel's been systematically circumventing international law since it was created. And I'm happy to give a propagandist against the Palestinian people. I'm happy to give him a boot. And he was also propagandizing against what's going on in Ukraine. That makes me sick too. Why did he not mention that there was a coup? And also, I just pulled up this interesting article from Counterpunch, and it's talking about the Ukraine war spreading across the Russian border. It gives a lot of good details on that. Yeah, if you Google Ukraine war spreads across Russian border, you can see that they've attacked, they did a bombing inside Russia, and then you get further into the article and you find out that the person that's controlling this like military force is guess what, Clay? He's an Israeli citizen. What's his name? Kolomoisky, a Ukrainian oligarch with Israeli citizenship, who's worth an estimated $6.3 billion, according to Forbes. He's a bank tycoon who continues to play an extraordinary role in turning the tide of war on behalf of the Kiev government. That's the illegitimate Zionist plant government there. Of Jewish descent, Kolomoisky, who lives in Switzerland, returned to Ukraine to accept appointment as governor of the Dnipropetrovsk in March 2014. So he's an Israeli that was hiding in Switzerland that they turned into their to the governor of Dnipropetrovsk in 2014 and March 2014, and in no small part to protect his investments and to benefit from bank reform under the recently signed European Trade Association Agreement, the ETAA. And Dnipropetrovsk, an area of heavy industry second only to Donetsk province. Kolomoisky is known for his aggressive takeover of businesses using armed guards when necessary. The ETAA is essentially the same document that exiled President Yanukovych, that was the legitimate president, refused to sign in February in opposition to acquiescing political control of Ukraine to the EU in return for complying with strict trade and austerity requirements. So the people of Ukraine do not want to join the EU. They've had a military takeover there, and they're trying to force them to join the EU. So it's got nothing to do with the ethnic hatred between Ukrainians and Russians. So that's actually, it's a factor that's being exploited, but you have to see the Jewish hand in it here. I mean, we've got if you don't mind, to read like another paragraph or two from this article, because it's amazing and explains that this guy is an Israeli and he's just like running wild with his own battalion, which doesn't follow the orders of the Ukrainian government, illegitimate as it is. He's got his own. It says, since April, Kolomoisky has reportedly spent more than $10 million to create the 2,000 battle-ready Dnipro battalion with 20,000 reserve troops, which is not limited to military engagement within the Dnipropetrovsk province, considered a terrorist group by the Putin government for its role in the deadly arson attack in Odessa and the massacre of Mariupol citizens. Dnipro has now cited, it has also been cited as responsible for the shelling of Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, and Donetsk, which has driven 50,000 people from their homes. Dnipro was also implicated in storming the Krasnoarmeysk City Hall in May to stop the balloting. Ukraine authorities reportedly support the oligarch-funded militias like the Donbass and Azov battalions, none of which are limited to their local regions, and a very interesting clandestine group referred to as the Black Men, also all considered more reliable than the Ukraine military, offering a $10,000 bounty for the capture of any pro-Russian separatist. Former presidential candidate and local member of parliament Oleg Zarev became a prime target after receiving a threatening phone call from Kolomoisky, informed that a Jewish soldier from the Dnipro battalion had been killed in fighting, and that members of the Jewish community had put a reward of $1 million on his head. Zarev withdrew from the presidential race after being beaten by a mob in Kiev and after his home was burnt to the ground. Zarev then moved his family to Moscow, but has been cited recently in Kramatorsk. So it goes on and on, but if you don't, like Keith Davies did not recognize that they have these Israelis and representatives from the Jewish IMF bank are behind the takeover of the Ukraine, and that's what the story is. It's, you can't leave that part out of it like he did. I find that very interesting.
Well, he was, they fund all of these things. As a matter of fact, I've just done an article that'll be going up on the, on my claydouglas.com site. And I do have, you know, I try to be fair about everything, so I put up the words of a Jew, Benjamin Friedman, Jewish historian and researcher from 1953, that said,
Former Jew.
Christians have been duped by the unholiest hoax in all of history. By so-called Jews. This is considered their most effective weapon. The big lie technique is brainwashing American Christians into believing that Jesus Christ was king of the Jews, in the sense that the so-called Jews today call themselves Jews. Yeah, it's and I just experienced so much hate directed to me because I criticized a woman who put up a Love Israel, Support Israel, Pray for Israel banner up on a Texas website for common law juries. Clayton is a Muslim sympathizing trash. Clayton supports all the Christians being murdered around the world by Islam. I will take a typical Jew over an Arab evil piece of shit muzzy any day, asshole. How about them assholes? Those who curse Israel curse themselves. It's in the Bible. I said, read the Talmud. See what they think of Jesus.
No kidding. And also, there's an interesting thing going on with Islamic extremism, because looking into its roots, in my research, I can see how it was, you know, funded and propped up by the Rothschilds, who installed the corrupt and very much hated leadership of Saudi Arabia, the House of Saud. And there's all these articles, if you just Google, like, Saudis are crypto Jews or something along those lines. And what they have done is written their own hadiths, their own books of Islam, which are written by the Jews, to weaponize Islam, to get, and also to destroy Islam at the same time, and to give it a bad name as these terrorists go around the world, you know, calling themselves Muslims and blowing things up. And then you look at what they're blowing up and what they're destroying, and here they're destroying mosques, Shia mosques, and burning Qurans. And, you know, you have to ask yourself, is face clothes, and burning Qurans, and the answer is they're not Muslims, they're Wahhabi, Salafi, Takfiri, crypto Jews, and that they're not adhering to Islam at all. And it's easy to understand, because if you look at the West, we have the same problem, the same exact problem with Christianity. And about 100 years ago, about the same time that the Saudis were placed into power by the Rothschild-controlled British Crown for Zionist interests, they also published the dispensationalist Bibles of C.I. Schofield and John Nelson Darby, which are an attempt to take Christianity and destroy it and turn it into support for Zionism as well. So you really kind of have to get out your magnifying glass and look closely at what's going on, and what you'll see is that the Christian Zionists and the Islamic extremists are two groups that were created by Jewish interests in order to foment a clash of civilizations, to pit the Christians and Muslim worlds against each other. So in order to beat the New World Order, we actually have to build a bridge between those two, between Christianity and Islam, and try to do what we can to destroy these crypto-Jewish versions of Christianity and Islam, which are being used to pit the world against itself. So Christianity and Islam can destroy each other while the Jews sit back and laugh and establish greater Israel.
Been the plan for ever since the Civil War. Then the Pike, the Mason, predicted that Third World War, so they've had this plan forever. And by the way, the Saudi royal family was Jewish, is Jewish.
Exactly. Amen.
So why does Saudi Arabia, if they attack Egypt, if they attack Jordan, if they attack Syria, why do they leave the Saudis alone?
Exactly. It's because there's only one explanation. It's that they're Jews, just like you said, and so yeah, they're you have to recognize that you got the Palestinian people who don't really have much of a military force going on, and so in order to support them, you have to. If you want to support the Palestinian people, the way to do that, the only way to do it, is to support their strategic allies, which are Hezbollah, Syria with Assad, and Iran. And so here you've got the Middle East kind of divided up, and you've got these crypto-Jewish, corrupt, Freemasonic Gulf monarchies, which are pitted against the allies of the Palestinian people. And so yeah, they want to destroy Syria and Iran, and they failed with that because one of the reasons is because Putin reached out to them, and it's the reason he did that is because the Jewish goal is to destroy Russia. They want to have another rerun of Bolshevism in Russia, and in order to do that, they're trying to pick off Russia's allies first, Russia's strategic allies, to weaken Russia. So destroying Russia is the name of the game. That's why they want Iran. That's why they want Syria, and that's why Putin doesn't want them to do that. He's already reestablished Russian Orthodox Christianity as the religion of the country, and he's trying to defend his people from a second run of Bolshevism. So it's important to support not only the Palestinian people, but to support Hamas in times of conflict, because that's what the Palestinians have. I'm not happy with Hamas, but that's what they have, and to support Assad And, you know, it's interesting, Clay, that the Jews have a way of getting inside everybody's resistance and trying to ruin it. And what they're doing to the Palestinians is making them anti-Assad, or trying to, and they always bring up, like, why don't these other Arab nations help out Palestine? Well, they're doing what they can, because we don't have the strength, even, you know, with Putin, there's not the military strength to defeat the West. So what he's doing is setting up a new bank, a BRICS bank, to circumvent their system, to strangulate the New World Order, because once the dollar collapses, they're done. And then this thing that happened in Crimea, they're being, the whole goal of Russia is to prevent a third world war. That's how you beat the New World Order. The New World Order wants the third world war, and the fact that Putin won't let it happen, and he refuses to respond to the various numerous provocations against Russia. It's like a big chess game, and Putin, thank God, is winning it. In fact, I think that the New World Order is in decline as of about 1 year ago, when Putin exposed their false flag attack in Syria, and that it was the rebels that were behind the gas attack, and not Assad. So,
well, it's the propaganda is so heavy that it's hard to tell who the good guys and the bad guys are. You know, it's we were never at war. The Russian people were never a threat to us. They've always been our friends. They've always been our allies, until the Bolsheviks, the Jews, took over.
Exactly. And, you know, they use that to try to propagandize in Ukraine. This is basically their propaganda technique all over the world, is to convince people somehow that Russia is still the Soviet Union. But it's not the case. Putin has kicked out the oligarchs, and it's got, you know, the USSR collapsed, and this is a new entity now. So, but they try to exploit old animosities between Ukrainians and Russians, and they try to, you know, blame, to make it sound like Putin is part of the same force that caused the Holodomor, but in actuality, he's fighting against the international Jewry. We're behind communism, and international Jewry is now against Putin. And if you, he's their enemy number one, and if you even say Putin's name in front of basically any person who identifies politically primarily as a Jew, they will spit on the ground, because the Jews all know that Putin is does not represent communism. He represents the House of Romanov. He represents the Tsar. To all the Jews, Putin is the Tsar. So they want to convince us that he's the new Stalin or the new Hitler. I mean, look at them. You can't deny it. The whole Western media all lying in concert in an orchestrated fashion, trying to say, well, pro-Russian forces shot down the plane and with Putin's support, and no, the Ukrainians shot down the plane, and so, I mean, all it reveals is that the whole Western media is it's controlled basically by the House of Rothschild, and now we've got the House of Romanov rising up again, and beating the House of Rothschild at every turn. It's like this chess game where Putin is beating all of the world leaders all at once. You know, he's like they all have. There's a graphic that I like that kind of explains it pretty well, where it's just there's like a bunch of little tables set up, and there's a chessboard on each table, and there's like 7 or 8 chessboards, and David Cameron is behind one, and Obama behind one, and Merkel behind another, and then they're all on one side of the chessboards, and then Putin is on the other side, and he's walking up and down, beating all 7 or 8 people in 7 or 8 games at once. That's kind of what's going on. Like, a victory like this can't be scored on accident. Everything that Putin's doing is because he knows precisely what the game is that the Jews want, is to destroy his country, and they want to provoke a war. So,
and that's why he's outlawing homosexuality. He's stopping that.
Okay.
That was the only thing that Keith had that was true. This country is allowing the homosexuals to dominate and to run. I mean, this month, my birthday month is, it's June. That was June. We're in July now. June, Obama declared to be gay, lesbian, and transsexual month.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. But so, what about BRICS? This is the Brazil, Russia, India, and China. China's got more gold than anybody else, and they're talking about possibly a gold-backed currency worldwide. So,
yeah.
What do you know? Go ahead.
Well, I was going to back up just a second and clarify something. Vladimir Putin didn't outlaw homosexuality. What he outlawed is proselytizing to minors. Okay. So
right.
That means that you can't have like a parade in Moscow where you're wearing high heels and a thong and have 12 dildos taped to your head, and you can't defile the eyes of children. And but they tried to propagandize it as him outlawing homosexuality itself, and I don't have that huge of a problem with homosexuality. I have like a couple of gay friends that are all right, but what I have a big problem with is the way that the homosexual agenda is being driven for Jewish interests, and Putin recognizes that, and what he did is all he's doing is protecting the children of Russia, and so I try to explain that to people because they will start, it's being propagandized as being a bigot and stuff, but it's not.
I agree. I agree with that, because I've told people, talking about the Jews, I don't care who your grandmother slept with, and I don't care what you do or who you do it with in the privacy of your own home. I don't want you bringing the homosexual agenda into our schools. I don't want you bringing it in front of our children. I don't want you trying to co-opt our children. So
yeah, precisely, and God bless you for understanding all of that. It's a little complicated, but not really. I mean, it just comes down to Jewish power and influence and trying to counteract what it wants, and it wants to destroy the world. And one of the ways that they can do that is by destroying the family and destroying morality, and that's what cultural Marxism is all about. But you wanted to talk about BRICS?
What's that?
I said that we were about to start talking about BRICS, the new bank that's just been established to compete with the
BRICS. Let's talk about that. Of course, we're not getting a lot about that coming across the media. This is they're scared to death of that, and the hope that I hold out here is that both Russia, after having almost 100 years of communism, and China, who lost probably 100 million people to communism, maybe they woke up and they realized what was happening even more than Americans, because Americans are still so damn dumbed down. Trevor, I don't know. I've just said in the article that I put out, that I really don't know. There's a question I just can't answer. I don't know what I don't know if Americans are so dumbed down, or if they have if they just finally realized that the devil pays in gold and they've sold out. I don't know whether they're Jews or Christians or deluded Christians or Jews. I said, but I just, you know, the question I cannot answer to my satisfaction: are my fellow Americans sold out or just stupid?
Well, they've been corrupted. I guess this is how I look at it. Communism never died. It just moved to the United States. You have the neocons, or as I call them, the neo-Cohens, are really just communists that have put on a different disguise, and they came over here. The operation in Russia started to go bad, actually, with Stalin. People get Stalin wrong a lot. He was very opposed to Bolshevism. He was against the international communist revolution. He wanted to close down the Comintern, which was to be the seat of international revolution. After the end of the Second World War, Stalin changed. He was very impressed by Hitler, and he wanted to. He became a Russian nationalist, which is why the Jews had him poisoned when he died on Purim, because he was against the Jews, and he had already purged thousands of them from leadership positions and had created a Jewish homeland in Azerbaijan where he was exiling them. So Stalin became anti-Jewish at the end of his reign, and they had to have him killed as a result. So communism in Russia turned out to be a total disaster for the Jews because of Stalin, and so they kind of went underground and resurfaced in America as the neocons, and the lineage is direct, and so then through their use of television here and other ways that they influence culture, what they've done is turned Americans into self-centered, materialistic people that no longer care about other people in the world. So if that answers your question about why people are the way they are, have they sold out, or are they really that stupid, or is it a combination? We're taught to look at the world in a materialistic way and to not care about our brothers and sisters, and that's the Talmud vision is the way that they accomplish that. But yeah, talking to Americans, man, I'm with you. They need a lot of help, but there's a lot of good ones out there, you know, that they're all ears, and they're really happy to talk to me sometimes, and I can explain to them that it was international Jewry that orchestrated World War I and World War II, and they made up the Holocaust story, and they founded Israel, and they killed John F. Kennedy, and they attacked the USS Liberty, and they did 9/11. And I just try to tell everybody, all of these, you know, brainwashed Americans I know, I try to unhook them from the matrix, and, you know, one at a time if I have to, but yeah, we've got to try to counteract the Jewish agenda and pull people out of this insanity, out of this self-centered kind of, you know, Jewish way of looking at the world. They try to turn everybody into Jews like them.
I think that Americans are the next Palestinians. This invasion that's going on, and Texas is actually making a little bit of headway. I'm not sure Rick Perry is totally a good guy, but he has launched the National Guard down to the border to try to stem some of these illegals that are being brought over here. Many of these illegals are gang members. They're MS-13. They've got the tattoos. They're murderers. They're rapists. And as a matter of fact, this just kind of made the news here that Rick Perry is sending down the troops here to try to stop this illegal. But you know, Fast and Furious is alive and well, and it's being used to expand the whole drug and gun trafficking right now, where things are really heating up here in the in Texas.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. The Jews have been behind all these immigration plans, and I actually have nothing against Mexican people or any people themselves. I embrace humanity universally, but I do look at who's not a member of the Universal Human Brotherhood, the Jews, and their plan to destroy countries relies heavily on influencing, changing immigration policies and flooding every country with and destroying its borders. Just having secure borders is an important aspect of national sovereignty, which they try to undermine. And now we've got like millions of over the border illegals being like bussed in by the millions and given amnesty, and once again, you know, it's the mistake. It comes down to it over and over again, making the same mistake as electing people that are part of the Jewish political agenda. And for that matter, I don't really care if they're born to Jewish mothers or if they're just traitorous Gentiles that are working for these Jews. It doesn't make much difference to me. It's either, are you in line with the Jewish agenda or are you against it? And so the thing to do, the reason that the immigration problem is happening is that Americans are too stupid to not vote for these neo-Bolshevik Jews. I mean, why are they electing people like Dianne Feinstein and Chuck Schumer? And I mean, my God, man, there's really nobody to blame for America's problems except for Americans themselves, because we actually vote for these Bolsheviks.
Now let's I don't know what happened to my Truth Radio here. I missed my commercial here, but a couple of Border Patrol agents told Dave Hodges, who I feature in the last few issues of the Free American, he gets out good information, that under the pretense of labeling illegal aliens refugees, the United Nations is calling the shots on America's border operations, and the UN is deciding which immigrants to ship to various parts of the United States. One of the agents said UN personnel are already present at various detention facilities in the Southwest. They're working with Homeland Security agents and gathering MS-13 gangsters captured from different roundups. Patch worked together as a group and then shipped together to various locations on the perimeter of the United States. I object to admitting MS-13 gangsters to the U.S., and I was told we have our orders to treat them like anyone else, the other agent told Hodges. Hodges said he asked, so they're setting us up, and they have killed thousands of Americans. They've raped and robbed thousands more of Americans. And we're just letting it go.
Well, it's kind of the same pattern that we see around the world. Doesn't it strike you as being similar to what we have in Iran with the Mujahideen, Iqal, and in Syria with the various rebel forces there, and then we have these like thugs running around in Ukraine, and they're all being propped up by international Jewry because that the UN was created to legitimize a Jewish state in Palestine, and it's the UN itself is a tool of Jewish power, and nothing more, nothing less. They have a whole system set up where they can, the United States can veto all of these human rights resolutions against Israel, and they have this complex little mechanism set up, and so what we have in America is the same thing. Now they're flooding the country with what is essentially a pack of wild animals that are being sent here to sow chaos, and they're trying to do to America what they're doing to all the other countries, which is, it's just been known for so long. They're trying to burn all of the nations from end to end in order to prepare for a Jewish one world government, and it's been going on for a long time. There's a really interesting film called Occult Forces, which is made in France in like 1942 or 43, and it explains all of this. It explains how Freemasonry and is a Jewish. It's an occult secret society which is Jewish at the top, in the top ranks, and it works for the Jewish agenda. And the Jewish agenda is to, is tied in closely with the Jewish religion, with Judaism. And so you start looking into the Old Testament and the Talmud, and you see that they have the Judaism itself is fundamentally opposed to national sovereignty. The Jews think everything on the planet belongs to them, that their God gave it to them, and that it's their job to take it away from us. And so I don't understand why people why they don't see that there's this huge Jewish plot against humanity, and the border situation in the United States and Texas is a part of that. The UN and working on that, and then the Jews that are creating the laws, the immigration laws, and like in 1964 they changed the immigration law. It used to be that people had to immigrate to the United States within proportion with the demographic that was already living here, and then they changed that, and now they can just completely flood the country with 20 million illegal Mexican immigrants, and like I said, I live here in Austin. I like Mexican people. I like all people. It's got nothing to do with being racist against them. It's got everything to do with just keeping an eye on the Jewish political agenda, which is to have a Jewish one world government and to destroy all the Gentiles nations, and with usury, lending them money at interest, in which is a trap. And so all we need to do is print our own money here in the United States, give Congress the ability to control the volume of money that's being printed, so it can't be manipulated.
We can back it with gold. All we got to do is take back the gold they stole from Fort Knox, the gold that they confiscated from the American people back under Roosevelt, who pledged us as collateral for a debt that shouldn't even exist. I mean, now let me point out something too. Again, I really appreciate you staying on, but this Walid Shoebat, the guy that we had on, Keith Davies, supposedly worked for Walid Shoebat, the Shoebat Foundation, and here's what CNN had to say about him. They said Shoebat is a Palestinian American, Protestant Christian who converted from Islam. Shoebat claimed to be a Palestinian Liberation Organization terrorist in a CNN television interview, but the information could not be verified by CNN when investigated. He's a speaker for hire about dangers of Islamic radicalism, and also claimed to be a strong supporter of the State of Israel. Talk about a traitor. Born in the West Bank to an American mother, Shoebat also claimed to have firebombed an Israeli bank, although this claim could not be verified by investigative journalists. He was interviewed as a terrorism expert on several television programs, including appearances on CNN and the BBC and Fox News. CNN had presented Shoebat as a terrorist turned peacemaker. CNN investigative reporters found no evidence to support his claims of PLO affiliation or of being an ex-terrorist, which he cites as the grounds for his authority on the mindset of a terrorist. My God, what a piece of shit. A traitor to his own people. And then this Keith Davies has the nerve to come on here to try to justify Israel attacking those families, and as soon as they kill the children and the parents, then they want to accuse the parents of hiding behind their children.
Oh, but Clay, have you read the Hamas charter, though? I mean, give me a break. Can you believe these people? I'm glad that he hung up right away, man, because I'm not surprised that these people will turn and run as soon as someone speaks the truth, and I try to do my best to do that. I'm not the best at it, but I told him he's an enemy of the Palestinian people. And he hung up the phone and he's still gone, so what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that we're doing the right thing, exposing Israel and exposing the Jews who say they're Jews but are not. And they've even documented that themselves. I wonder if perhaps what's going on in the Ukraine is not all totally orchestrated by the Jews to take back and expand their former country of Khazaria. I believe that includes, I don't know for sure, I don't know, I don't have a map in front of me, but I would believe that that takes in Georgia and the Ukraine. And I think the Jews want it back. I think they want their cover's been blown. Most people around the world, with the exception of brain-dead Americans, who won't support, won't make a donation, won't buy a copy of the Free American magazine to share with their friends. But the rest of the world, including the Jews, are now admitting, yeah, the Ashkenazi Jews came from Khazaria. They were never, their ancestors were never in the Holy Land. They were never in Palestine. And I think the true Israelites of old, the true descendants of the tribes of Israel, a lot of them are Germans, a lot of them are Danish, a lot of them are, and that may be why they shot down a plane full of Danes. They're the Palestinians. They call them Palestinians today, but those people were there. They've been there for 2,000 years. Their ancestors walked with Jesus, and the Ashkenazi Jews didn't.
Well, I think you may be onto something there, because obviously the project in Israel is falling apart right now, and I did read an article somewhere, and it was in a Jewish newspaper. You never know if it was true or not, but they were talking about, they are looking at what's coming down the pike, and Israel is not going to survive. So maybe they are trying to reestablish. Because I read an article that was about that very thing. But as far as the Jews who say they are Jews and are not, I'd like to offer my my best interpretations of Revelations 2:9. It's since the word Jew did not even exist in the time of Christ, and the passage would actually read, I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Judeans, but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Judean being a nationality. Like, if you said, beware those who say they are Americans, but are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. I think it's a reference to the fact that what we today call Jews are only loyal to their tribe and not the host country that they infest, and that Judaism is antithetical to nationalism, and nationalism is the key to protecting ourselves. I believe that the word Jew was created to allow Jews to co-opt the nation of Palestine, once called Judea. And then remember that when they declared war on Germany on March 24th, 1933, the Jews referred to themselves as Judea, which I think is interesting because they appear to be trying to co-opt or monopolize the identity of the Palestinian people, because Judea is what Palestine used to be called. So, but they're basically a borderless nation comprised of people who view Gentiles as cattle to be subjugated and slaughtered. And so, because if they were calling themselves Jews but were not Jews, that would not be a problem. If they were not Jews, they would not be a problem. But the problem is that they are Jews, that they're and that they claim to be Americans or Judeans, but they're not. They're the synagogue of Satan. So, does that make sense of the fact that the word Jew did not even exist in up until like the late 1700s? So the Bible makes so many references to Jews. I think the word has to be read Judeans, and represents a nationality and not a race. That's my opinion, though.
Well, I believe you're right. I believe you're right, because even in my article that I'm putting up, Clay Douglas, Benjamin Friedman says they co-opted the name Jews, and I told people they hide behind Jews. They hide behind the name of Jews. I simply refuse to not call them Jews, because that's what they're hiding behind. But I don't think every Jewish grandmother out there is evil. I think we didn't control where we were born, what family we were born into, or what religion we were born into. And we can walk out. We can change. We've got the free will, so we can choose to be good or evil. And if you're
precisely being Jewish is a choice. It's not like I can't stop being white, and people can't stop being the race they are, but you can stop being a Jew. And an example of that would be Benjamin Friedman or Gilad Atzmon, who's my friend, who's coming back to Austin to play some more jazz with me, although I don't have any of the dates, the specific dates yet. They're not booked, but he's doing an American tour, and he's already contacted me about playing in Texas, and so and his message is that the only ethical thing to do, if they want to become decent people, they want to become ethical people, they just simply have to stop being Jews. I had something that I thought was kind of interesting to talk about, did you notice the various celebrities that were tweeting Free Palestine and then retracting their, deleting their tweets like 15 minutes later? And there was an article about this by Kevin Barrett. Let me see if I can look it up here.
I saw something about that. I saw something about that. I've had Kevin on my show before.
Yeah, I found the article. It's real short. I can just read it out.
Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, this is Kevin Barrett's article in Veterans Today. It's called "Celebrity Tweets Rip Israel to Shreds." A growing list of celebrities are tweeting their displeasure with the genocidal assault on Gaza. Oddly, some have felt the need to apologize afterward. When pop singer Rihanna tweeted "Free Palestine" and faced a Zionist backlash, she quickly removed the tweet and kissed up to the war criminals. Ironically, her new album is called Unapologetic. NBA star Dwight Howard also tweeted the hashtag Free Palestine, then deleted the post and said, "Previous tweet was a mistake. I have never commented on international politics and never will." When Jon Stewart expressed sympathy for the people of Gaza and said, "We have to talk about Israel," he was shouted down by Zionists and quickly backed down, reassuring the pro-genocide crowd that he was not pro-Hamas.
Well, this is what they do.
Helen Thomas.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Okay. Even the late great Helen Thomas, who famously said the genocidal Jewish invaders should get the hell out of Palestine, subsequently felt the need to grovel at the stinking feet of Zionism. She even said she deeply regretted speaking the truth, but then, to her credit, she retracted her retraction. She says, "I paid the price for that, but it was worth it to speak the truth. The Zionists have to understand that's their country too. Palestinians were there long before any European Zionists." Back to Barrett. "It seems the rules of the game are changing. In the past, the rules never criticized Israel or Zionism. Today, it's okay to blast the Zios, especially if you quickly tell them you are really, really sorry. Since I have hundreds of world-famous celebrities on speed dial, I decided to call and inform them that they can now rip Israel to shreds with impunity, as long as they apologize 15 minutes later. Many responded by sending me their private tweets and apologies. Here's a selection," and then he has a bunch of made-up, tweets. But the idea, I think it's an interesting article, an interesting way to look for Jewish power, because the Rothschilds and their minions are not listed in the Forbes 500. They tried to remain invisible. They kind of have I like the way Mark Glenn describes it. He says that they have a cloaking device, like a spaceship in a science fiction movie. There's always one ship that has a cloaking device, so it can attack, but without having its location, be detected. And that's what the Jews do. But if you look at these retractions, we can't hear the phone calls that went out to these celebrities that made them retract, but we can. We do know that they happened just based on the fact that they deleted their tweets 10 or 15 minutes later and apologized. So it's an interesting way of observing Jewish power in action. It's supposed to be unobservable. It's they call it the hidden hand of Jewish power, but why is it then that every single celebrity that tweeted Free Palestine deleted their tweets? It's an interesting way of exposing Jewish power. I think this is a good article.
Well, it's interesting that when after my accident, which wasn't an accident, my phones were tapped by Converse and Amdocs. That's been documented. the NSA didn't tap everybody's phones. George Bush said, the story in the New York Times said George Bush had allowed NSA to tap everybody's phones, but New York Times didn't tell you it was two Israeli companies that were doing our phone tapping. So they arranged my accident and to silence me, and then they went after. I had one of my magazines sold for $500,000, and I still retained half of it. Means it was worth $1 million on the stock market. And they put a press release out on Friday. We signed the papers on Thursday. They put a press release out on Friday that they had bought Arizona's premier motorcycle magazine, and that I would remain on as publisher. Monday I walked into the office, the CEO's white and shaking, my stock's crashing like a rock. They've contacted every stockholder in the company to tell them what an anti-Semite you are. So, and then when I wrote a book about what happened to me, about losing my family, about losing my businesses, it's called Mystery Babylon, The New World Order Unveiled. I published it, and I printed it, and I started selling it around Tucson. And I went into the biker bars I'd been supporting. I was working on bringing back Thunder Riders as a website. And then suddenly I walk in a bar, and all the bikers there want to kick my ass. They want to kick me out. They won't let me into any run. Even though I paid in it, they wouldn't let me participate. Why? Because you're selling that book to raise money for a snitch named Huevos. Hey, I don't know anybody named Huevos. I don't sell the book to make any money for anybody but me. But this is the way the Jews operate. And this is what they did up on this whole website here. I got on and said, if you want to support Israel, you're either brain dead or you're a traitor to this country. And you know, those who curse Israel curse themselves. It's in the Bible. I have Jewish blood, been baptized as a Christian who has a Jewish father, but I was named in a temple at birth. My mother was a Catholic. Dixie Darling, I love this one. I'm a Christian, and God said to love and support Israel, not the country of Israel, you brain-dead Americans. The people that were of the tribes of Israel, and we crossed the Caucasus Mountains, turned left, and they started calling us Caucasians. They called us Germans. They called us Danes. They called us English.
Aryans.
Arabs, yeah.
No, Aryans.
Aryans, yes. Aryans, yes. And I don't know, I kind of feel like Iran is probably descended from some of the tribes there too.
Absolutely.
Why do they go after Iran so much, Trevor? Iran hasn't threatened anybody. It was our support of Saddam Hussein that caused Iraq to go to war with them. And when Saddam decided that maybe it wasn't in his best interest to support these bastards and take the U.S. dollar for Iraq's oil, they killed him.
Yeah, well, I like to back up to 1954 when the CIA deposed the Ayatollah and replaced him with their puppet dictator, the Shah, who inflicted a reign of terror upon the people of Iran. But I mean, they want to take over every country, and as far as I know, the reason that they want Iran is that if they can control that much of the Middle East, then they'll be able to get at the soft underbelly of Russia that way. So, but anyway, the Iranians, the Persian people, who are hated by the Jews. I mean, the Jews celebrate the holiday of Purim, which is
celebration of the slaughter of 75,000 Persians. They seem to have a deep hatred of pretty much every kind of people there are on the planet. And but in 1979, the Iranians threw out their corrupt USA Jewish puppet dictator, the Shah, and slipped out from under the thumb of global Zionism, and they've been panicking ever since. And Iran has been slated for destruction by the International Jewish Bankers from the outset. So they're still trying to recover what they lost in 1979, and the fact that they haven't been able to destroy Iran is actually proof that the Jews do not control everything. A lot of people think that they control every war, fund all sides. They do that to a large extent, but they don't control everything. And so that's kind of the first thing that woke me up, as I came across a video by Scott Horton called Iran Propaganda Debunked in 6 minutes, and he made me understand that Iran does not have a nuclear weapons program. The Ayatollah has issued a fatwa that, which makes perfect sense. He says that nuclear weapons are un-Islamic, which, they're not allowed to harm innocent people. Islam is a good religion, and they, in most ways, in every way that I know of, and it's only the Jews that devise weapons like the nuclear bomb and the Uzi and cluster bombs and gassings and all of the kind of things that they use are not, they're designed simply to inflict terror on people and to mass murder people indiscriminately, and Iran is against that, and so it's quite amazing when you consider that Israel has hundreds of illegal, unregistered nuclear weapons.
And by the way, they use that, and this is in my last issue of the Free American, they used those nuclear weapons to blow up the World Trade Center.
Well, I don't know if I'll sign off on that. That very well could be, but to me it looks like a textbook controlled demolition. One of the people that we were talking to at, but I don't want to, if you know something about, nukes being used, then I'm not trying to challenge that, but because I'm not that big of a 9/11 expert, but when I was up at Freedom Palooza, there was one of the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth was there. This guy known only to me as Greg, and we were just talking about the fact that Larry Silverstein was on the PBS documentary, and he admitted that he demolished World Trade Center building number 7 himself on 9/11. So, I mean, that's how bad the problem is, that we have an admission, the Silverstein demolished building number 7, and we have a 9/11 commission written by an Israeli citizen, Philip Zelikow, and presided over by a Jewish judge, Hellerstein, I think, and it was just an Israeli cover-up from the beginning. So I try to not get off into too many specifics about how 9/11 was done, because I think that they can use that to create argument within the truth community. So whenever I see people arguing about, was it directed energy weapons or, nukes or whatever, and I just remind people it was the Israelis. They admitted to it right on TV, and just, the fact that they control the media and are able to overwhelm people with the Muslims with box cutters did 9/11 story is a testament to their control of the media and their ability to shape public opinion to make it be whatever they want, to the point where they can take Silverstein's admission and just make it kind of disappear down the memory hole. But I mean, if he demolished the building on 9/11, how was it pre-rigged? You can't run into a building and just rig it up. It takes like weeks or months to do it. So I'm really disappointed in the American people that they can't figure it out, because it's just literally right in front of their faces.
That's right, and I put building number 7 on the cover of my March issue 2004 of the Free American, and a month later, 30 days later, I was drugged in a hospital for 3 months. It's that was all used to move us into a war. You know, I'm surprised that very few people are commenting that we fought these wars in Iraq. Why is there still a war going on in Iraq? Who are these people? Where and why are our politicians like Songbird McCain shaking hands with the stooges that we were told were our enemy? Al-Qaeda suddenly our friends?
Yeah, so we have a totally nonsensical foreign policy. And another person that I met in person at Freedom Palooza is retired Lieutenant Colonel Karen Kotowski. And I'd like to direct the listeners to an excellent presentation that she gave at the summit to reassess the U.S.-Israel relationship. If you go to natsummit.org, there's this massive 8-hour press conference that was held at the Washington Press Club, where they have all of these presentations and panels of experts, CIA experts, and one of the people there is Karen Kotowski, and but yeah, she worked inside the Pentagon's Office of Special Plans, and her presentation at Freedom Palooza and also at the Nat Summit were about how the Jewish Israel First neocons invented the pretext, the weapons of mass destruction pretext for the Iraq War. It was completely invented by Israelis. And I think that speaks volumes, and being our job is to try to wake up our friends and family members. They would always tell me, oh, you're just reading some junk off the internet, and you're stupid, and you don't have any idea what's true and what's not, and you've gone off the deep end. And now we have this all these tremendous resources to go to, and does he really think? Does my dad really think that Reagan McGovern and Phil Giraldi and Karen Kotowski and Gareth Porter and all these people are just completely off their rockers? Look, they're saying all the same things that I've been saying for several years, and it's right on C-SPAN. And so we got to put the screws to these people, man. They've killed millions of people in the Middle East, and it's always the Muslims too. And the things that really woke me up was this Jewish landlord that I had, and I could not believe how much this guy hated the Arabs and Muslims. Like, he wanted them just literally exterminated off the planet. It was, I thought it was really vile, and I started to do some research, and I found out, of course, that it's pretty much like 95% of Israelis feel the same way. So now, knowing that, now taking another look at the note that was left on 9/11 that was found in the suitcase. Isn't it just funny that Muhammad Atta's suitcase didn't make it on the plane, and that they found his plans and that little note, like a crappily written note, as if Arabs and Muslims can't, as if they all are so stupid that they write like first graders. And it says, "Death to America, death to Israel. Allah is great." I think that the code name for the operation was the Big Wedding, you know, the 9/11 operation, because that's when America and Israel became like wedded to one another in terms of foreign policy. And then when they wrote on the note, Allah is great, that was the Jews' way of saying, you know, signed the Muslims, you know, that it's the religion of Islam that we're trying to fight. So it just makes it all the more curious that you have people like Walid Shoebat and Keith Davies spreading the same exact propaganda about Islam that the Israeli Jews do. And I mean, talk to any Muslim or any Christian for that matter, they will encourage you to read the Quran or the New Testament. That their religion is not a secret. The Jewish religion is a secret, and what's written in the Jewish holy books are like the biggest secret in the world. It's, I mean, now we have the internet, you can just look and see what's in them, but I mean, my God, man, I mean, there's if what's written in the Old Testament isn't bad enough, you know, then you have the Talmud, and then you have all these people claiming that swearing up and down that Zionism has absolutely nothing to do with Judaism, and it makes you wonder where the hell these people get these ideas when the top rabbis of the IDF are reading off Old Testament passages and recommending that they do warfare the Old Testament way, which is to kill all the, you know, women, children, animals, everything. And they're doing that with this new operation that's going on right now. So it's totally tied into the Jewish religion. It's got nothing to do with Zionism anymore. I mean, the way I look at it, Zionism was the dream of a Jewish homeland, which is something that I know I could see where people would think that would be a good idea, just to let them have a place where they can be safe, but you know, that's not what's happening. What we have is Old Testament style warfare being waged, and there, like I said, what's written in the Jewish books is hidden from public sight, and if you want to see what's in their books, you have to either go to a synagogue and ask to see their Talmud, which I always wanted to do. I think that would be funny. Me and you, Clay, someday we should show up at a synagogue and tell them that we want to read their Talmud and see what they say to us. But, you know, Ted Pike, the Reverend Ted Pike, went to had to go to the Library of Congress to look inside their religious books, and he took he made photocopies of the pages, and you can see that there's like chapters called the necessity of extermination of Gentiles, and you just have to read in their books a little bit, and you'll see that, you know, people that talk about Islam, people that complain about Hamas, they're being very obtuse, because the religion of Islam and the religion of Christianity are ethical, moral religions that were formed in direct opposition to the tribal and supremacist viewpoints of Judaism. And so I guess I just covered a whole lot of topics all at once, but I kind of try to do that on purpose to give people an overview of the big picture.
I think so. And, you know, the Bible's got a lot of that in there. These, when they turned their back on their own Messiah, from, you know, they were condemned.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking for this Old Testament passage right here. Excuse me. Okay, so this is for all the people who swear that Zionism and Judaism are diametrically opposed. This is from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 1 through 8. When the Lord your God brings you into the land you are to possess, and casts out the many peoples living there, you shall then slaughter them all and utterly destroy them. You shall make no agreements with them, nor show them any mercy. You shall destroy their altars, break down their images, cut down their groves, and burn their graven images with fire. For you are a holy people unto the Lord thy God, and he has chosen you to be a special people above all others upon the face of the earth. So you tell me if that doesn't sound exactly like what's going on in Palestine right now. Even right down to the cutting down of the groves. They're waging war, the Old Testament style. And for Christians, I think that the Christianity and Judaism go together. This is like the big Frankenstein religion that the Rothschilds mocked up when they put the Old Testament and the New Testament together, even that Jesus said, do not pour new wine into old wineskins. And he was talking about the fact that there's a new covenant now, and this new way of thinking does not mix with the old way of thinking. So Judaism and Christianity need to be divorced, just like the rest of the world needs to divorce itself from Zionism and from any kind of Judaic influence.
Well, I certainly agree with that. I said Jesus, I think, was the first rebel that solved the problem we got today. How do you fight evil without becoming evil?
Oh my God, is that not the ultimate question?
And who did Jesus
how do you
kill?
beat them without becoming them?
Who did Jesus kill? Nobody.
Yeah. But you're what were we talking about a second ago? 9/11. We were talking about celebrities a little while ago, and I just for fun one time I googled celebrities for 9/11 truth, and I found this article where, first of all, there's hardly anything written on the topic at all. The only thing that I found was this hit piece, where it's called the Top 10 Celebrity 9/11 Conspiracy Theory Nut Jobs, and this is pretty old, probably back when they thought that they'd be able to pull off the 9/11 was Muslims lie. But there was a bunch of celebrities that weren't having it, and like, you remember Marion Cotillard, who won an Oscar for her brilliant, astonishing portrayal of Edith Piaf in the movie La Vie en Rose. What happened to her? What about Willie Nelson? Did you know that Willie Nelson says that he knows 9/11 was a controlled demolition, and because he has seen casinos in Las Vegas being demolished where he lived, and so there were like a number of celebrities. There's about 10 of them in there, and they're all subjected to the worst character assassination that you could see in this article, and they don't try to refute any of the things that these celebrities are saying. Like, Willie Nelson, for example, they just said that he just smokes too much pot and doesn't know what he's talking about, and blah blah blah. But I mean, the fact remains that any idiot can spot a controlled demolition, and there's just so many ways to perceive the attack on humanity that's going on right now. So many ways to see where it's coming from, and then all of these stories lead to the same place. I mean, if what percentage of the population doesn't believe in the official story of 9/11? I have only met, I don't know. My dad is the only person I know that just really clings to the 9/11 official story. But, if 80% of the population disbelieves the official story, why doesn't the entertainment industry reflect that simple demographic? It kind of looks like the Jews who control the banks and media and own all 8 major motion picture studios are weeding out those who do not toe the line. Any idiot should immediately be able to see what's been going on just by this one thing alone. I still know hundreds of people in the industry, and I talk to, and not one of them has, in the course of our private conversations, ever denied the legitimacy of anything I've said about 9/11, JFK, World War I, World War II. They're too terrified, apparently, to mention anything publicly. I mean, I still regularly talk to my musician friends that are still working, and they all know what's going on. They're just too afraid to say anything about it, and I think it's kind of sad.
Well, they are afraid to say anything, and they're afraid to go against their peer pressure. And I don't know, they've tried to demonize me so bad for years, and I think they've done a pretty good job of it. Because today, I mean, I've got a magazine for sale. I sold 10,000 copies for 10 years. And today, I'm lucky if I sell one a day. I just put somebody up on my Facebook. I put that I'm really fairly disgusted with them, because I said I've asked for help and support from my Facebook friends to support the shows that I do and sell the magazines that once sold in Barnes & Noble for $5. The latest editions are now $2.99 at www.shop.freeamerican.com. Today, a lady who loaned me $1,000 needed help. She gave me the $1,000 so I could get my motorcycle fixed and get it out of the shop and have transportation. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to get to the store or anywhere. She was on her way up to see her grandchildren. Her car broke down. I put out a request for help, for donations, and I would send the donations straight to her. To date, not one of my friends have ordered a magazine or made a donation. I've been attacked and demonized, insulted, and slandered by Israel-loving traitors who only hassle me and try to drive off my listeners and supporters that frequent my website, www.freeamerican.com. I will start eliminating these so-called friends this week. I know times are tough and few of us have extra cash, but if you cannot afford $2.99 for a first-rate magazine that has been in publication since 1994 and support demand the ADL and SPLC attack for starting militias, you're worthless and should be ashamed to call yourself patriots.
Well, I think all those pro-Israel people are going to come to regret their traitorous support of genocide in Palestine, because I hear a lot of people talking about geopolitics as a chess game, but in one way it's not. In the chess pieces, we don't have the same chess pieces. The enemy does not have the truth on their side at all. So all of these pro-Israel people are going to have to change their minds or pay the price. I mean, they've got to be really embarrassed right now after, what Israel's doing in Palestine now. The death toll is over 700. I mean, it was last night when I went to bed. It's like every hour it keeps going up. But, what they're doing over there, bombing hospitals and just randomly killing hundreds of innocent civilians, is totally indefensible. It's just like, violence and racism and just blatant and right in your face. And and now we've got like Israeli Jewish rabbis saying that they should rape the Palestinians' mothers and as a deterrent from terrorism, and all Palestinians and their mothers should be killed. One of the lawmakers of Knesset said that, and
yeah, who was that? That was some woman in the Knesset. They were talking about just kill them before they're born, wasn't it?
Yeah, they have, there's Israeli T-shirts for the IDF that show crosshairs on a pregnant woman's belly, and it says 1 shot, 2 kills, and that's their, you have to meet 1 or 2 of these people, otherwise you probably would not believe that they actually exist, that anybody like that wicked could exist, but they do, and they really think of the Palestinians as animals, as rats. That Ayelet, whatever her name is, that said that all Palestinian mothers should be killed, said that they should be killed before they can give birth to their little snakes, and they don't realize how insane they look to the rest of the world. I mean, they're like talking about killing babies, and there's even been a bunch of Israeli IDF soldiers and women saying that killing Palestinian babies gives them like sexual joy. They say that they almost had an orgasm when they found out that these innocent children were killed. And again, it takes us back to Judaism, because in Judaism they put their hands on the head of an innocent animal, and they say like a satanic prayer that transfers their sins to the animal, and then they slaughter an innocent animal. So the whole point is that they kill innocent people and innocent animals to absolve themselves of their own sins. And so you can see this happening like right before your eyes, and the battle that's going on, the slaughter, the genocide against the Palestinian people that's going on right now, and how people like Walid Shoebat and Keith Davies could support Israel's slaughter of these people and to propagandize against the Palestinians, and is just makes me sick. Like, these people, I have a certain respect for the Jews. At least they are defending their own people, or maybe defending is the wrong word, I take that back, but there's a picture of Dianne Feinstein and somebody says traitor, I have to remind that person that Dianne Feinstein is not a traitor. She's a loyal Jew. But people like Shoebat, I think his whole story is made up.
I think so too.
Obviously they can't verify any part of it. I mean, was a Palestinian terrorist. Well, shut up, you're an asshole.
And he's well funded. The one thing, and I had a woman I used to have on my show on a regular basis. She got all mad at me because I said I don't hate the Jews. I almost admire them. If us white boys had it as together as the Jews, we'd own the Federal Reserve, we'd own the Bank of England, we'd own the International Monetary Fund, and we'd be running this country for the benefit of the people.
No kidding, man. I feel exactly the same way. I wrote a little piece called the Gentile Problem, where I explain that the Jews aren't the problem. Gentiles that allow them to rule over us are the problem. Those are the traitors. And so the Jews wouldn't be able to do what they do without traitorous Gentiles that
the Jews, the one thing about the Jewish people, they never let a fellow Jew go broke. They don't do that.
True.
If you and I can't get Americans, Texans, Christians to spend $2, $3 to keep me on the air by buying a magazine. And I tell people you can give it to as many people as you want. You can share it with as many people as you want. I created the Free American to inform you where the mainstream won't. This is why I started Free American 20 years ago. Trevor Labonte, thank you for being with me. I appreciate it. We're out of time.
Okay, thanks, Clayton. I had a good time. Let's do it again.
All right, sir. I will. Thank you. Bye-bye now.
All right, thank you. Bye.